Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti. I am MrPhotographer.com. Today we're just going to take a quick look at Capture One 21. Now, this video is more for the person that heard about Capture One, you never really have seen it before, but you're thinking of trying it out. In the description below this video, I'll have a link to Capture One. They have a fully working free trial. I encourage you to try it out before you buy it. Now, as far as Capture One 21, it was just recently released a 3 weeks ago, and I apologize, I really haven't done a video on it sooner. First of all, for those of you that are used to Lightroom or an application like Lightroom, and if you're moving over to Capture One 21, it may be a bit confusing at first. Things that do the same thing as in Lightroom just have different names. They're in kind of weird spots and you kind of have to search for them. And then they have some tools that are totally different than any tool that is in Lightroom. So it can be a bit confusing. First of all, as you can see from the workspace, it's kind of backwards from Lightroom. Over here on the left-hand side is where we have all the tools and controls. Over here on the right-hand side, we have the film strip. And across the top, we have what they call cursor tools. And let's take a little closer look at what's going on here. Over here on the left-hand side, they have these little tabs going across. And right now, I'm in the Library tab. And here, it's a typical kind of library module where you could go from your folder to folder. You could go to your catalogs. You could create collections of images. You could give images star ratings and color tags, they call them. You also could enter keywords and things like that for an image, all in that library section. Next is the Capture tab. The Capture tab has camera information and things you would do, settings for the camera, and for tethering. So you would have your camera hooked up directly to your computer, and as you take images, they would enter directly into Capture One using this tab here. Next to that is the Lens tab, and this is anything to do with the lens, from chromatic aberration, diffraction correction, fringing, and so on. So all that is right there. Next to that is the Color tab, and this has a lot of tools that concern color. The color editor, white balance, color balance, things like that. All that is in here, and including black and white settings too, if you convert your images to black and white. Next to color is the Exposure tab, and this is anything to do with the tone of the image. So, highlight, shadows, whites and blacks, exposure. It does have saturation in there as well. It has clarity, dehaze, it has levels, it has curves. Those of you that are familiar with Photoshop know about stuff like that. And it has vignetting as well. And that's all in the Exposure tab. Next to that is the Details tab. This is sharpening and noise reduction mainly, but there's also some other tools in there like film grain, spot removal, moire, and stuff like that. Next to that is what they call adjustments. Now, they also, inside of Adjustments tab, are styles. And what styles are presets. And Capture One sells all different preset packs or styles packs that you could purchase. There's probably some third-party ones out there as well. Tell you honest kind of truth, I'm not super familiar with styles because I just don't use them at all. But a lot of people like the styles that are available for Capture One. Next to that is metadata. So all the information about your image. You can see this is a Sony A7R4. It's, the dimensions of the image and all that. The lens I used and everything there. The exposure info is there as well. And you could scroll down to more info about the image there. Then the final tab is called the Output tab. And this is the Export tab. So you could export it, TIFF, JPEG. They have these kind of preset recipes, they call them, for exporting. You also could create your own. You don't have to, use one of theirs. If you need a specific sized image, maybe let's say 1,000 pixels on the long edge, and it has to be a JPEG at 80% quality, then you could all just dial that in here as well. So those are the tabs going across the left-hand side. Now at the top, you also have some kind of quick buttons. You could import images. You import images into the catalog similar to what you would do in Lightroom. export images. You have that export kind of quick button right there. Capture, that's for tethering again. Remember we had that capture tab way over here on the far left. Then you could reset the entire processing you've done to the image. You could go back through steps, so undo or redo. So if I go back a step, if I go forward a step, something like that. You also have auto adjust, so you could just auto adjust the image by using one click there. Across the top, we have some cursor tools. Now, there's also a lot of tools that are kind of cubbyholed in with these tools. Wherever you see a tool that has a little tiny triangle next to it, that means there's more than one tool there. For example, if you look at this kind of band-aid there, and if I hover over it, I'll get a tooltip, draw healing mask. But if I click with the left mouse button and hold that button in, you can see that not only is there a healing mask there, there's cloning mask and a spot removal tool as well, and then some other controls for that tool below it. And it's like that for pretty much every tool there except this tool right here, which is the erase mask. So going across from left, we have the select tool. That's just what I'm in now. You have the pan tool. You have the loop tool. You have the crop tool. You have the straighten tool. You have the keystone vertical tool, which I actually used on this to make sure those light posts were straight up and down. Let's see, next to that, we have the draw mask tool. There are layers available in Capture One, and with layers, you'd be able then to put masking and adjustments on one layer, like a healing brush, adjustments on a layer, and so on. And all that is done with these masks. Next to that, I talked about the draw healing mask and the erase mask. We have the white balance tool. We have an apply adjustments tool where you could actually, if we click and hold, you could see you could copy the adjustments you did to one image and apply them to another image. And then finally at the very end there, we have draw annotations. Draw on top of your photo and leave visual notes to yourself or others. So this is good if you're working in teams, or if you often forget something you want to consider doing or something you've done to an image, you could make annotations with that. Going across the top further, we have the before after right here, with this kind of halfway thing. We also have this grid where you could put like a rule of thirds grid over your image like that. There's also other options you could explore with the grid. Next to that, we have exposure warning. I'll click that on. You can see I have no exposure warnings. This would be applicable if I had something that was overexposed. You'd start to get red in the image. You could see how that works like that. So I'll turn exposure warning off. We also have a Learn tab. If you click on that, a little window will pop up. Oops, there it is. And it has tutorials and, different things you could learn directly from Capture One. So we'll get rid of that. And then we have this edited selected. It toggles between the edit primary and edit selected variants. So this is when you have more than one variant, meaning you could create a variant of an image. So you actually have a virtual copy of an image and you have the real copy of the image. And you could process the real copy one way and your virtual copy, or as they call it in Capture One, the variant, a different way. And then you could toggle between those two and see which one you may like better. And then next to that, you have that copy and apply again. So you could copy the settings from one image and apply it to the other. Again, we have the film strip on the far right. And you could also give it color labels and or star ratings across the top as well right there. Now, one real powerful feature with Capture One is you don't have to use this workspace. You could use a different one. They have others that come with it, meaning if you go to Window, Workspace, you could see you'll have the default workspace. This is the one we're looking at now and is the one you'll see when you first use Capture One. Below that, we have a simplified workspace, and this is doesn't have as many tabs over here on the far left and gives you just probably the tools that they deem to be essential for processing an image. If we go to Window again and go to Workspace, you can see there's one for wedding photographers and so on. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see there's migration, dual monitors if you're using dual monitors, but they also allow you to customize a workspace. And you can see I have one down here called My Workspace. And this is my customized workspace when I use Capture One, and I'll show you that. And what I did is I totally changed it. I like the controls and all the tools over on the far right. I'm just used to having them over there. So they're on the right. Also, you'll notice I have an extra tab. It has a number 1 on it. What I've done is I've taken each of these tabs, I've taken the tools in each of those tabs that I most often use, and instead of having to tab through them to find them, I have them all right here in this tab, roughly in the order I tend to use them. So I tend to like to look at the histogram. Then I have layers below that. Then I have lens corrections. I like to do those early in my workflow. Crop, I like to crop early in my workflow. Keystone, I'll take care of that early in my workflow. Base characteristics. This is the profile that I might be using. This is a Sony camera. You could see right there. And then you could go through in the curve, and so whatever I might want to do there. Then I'll get down to white balance next. Then I do, if I'm converting it to black and white, I'll do that there. Exposure info next. This is the tone of the image. High dynamic range. This is still tone of the image. Levels, still tone of the image. Curve, still tone of the image. Noise reduction. Clarity. Color editor. Color balance. Sharpening. And vignetting. So those are, again, roughly in the order I would do them. And I created that myself. Now, I do have a video on an older version of Capture One where I demonstrate how to customize Capture One's workspace to your own liking. I'm going to be updating that video, so look for that video in another week or so, and I'll show you how you could customize Capture One's workspace so that you could have something that works for your workflow a little bit more effectively than maybe the default workspace. Again, and we'll just jump back to that default workspace there. And I think that actually helped me a lot when I started using Capture One, creating my own workspace, because I was always fumbling around these different tabs, trying to find something I was looking for. And it just added a lot of time to my post-processing. Having those controls where I want them on the right, all in one tab, in the order I roughly would do them, just made things a lot faster for me. So again, this video is just kind of, as I said, a quick look, an overview of the newest version of Capture One, Capture One 21. I also have a free PDF that you could have where I compare different post-processing applications to one another. Included in that PDF, of course, is Capture One, Lightroom, Luminar AI, On1 Photo Raw, Exposure X6, and Photolab 4 are all included in that. So you could check that out. I have info about that in the description below this video as well. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.